All right, I like what you got there. Let me show you what I got. Check this out. Bring the bass line. Hey, yo, shut it down.
Hi, and thank you for joining. I am Thereadheadgemini, and today's conversation is going to be centered around standards, integrity, and the coffee date conversation. I do have a special guest today. Her name is Ashley McPherson, widely known as the Coffee Lady, who is a California-born, Kentucky-based creator and advocate whose TikTok explaining why she declined a coffee date sparked 2.5 million views and a national conversation about intention, respect, and a woman's boundaries. At 35 and child-free by choice, Ashley uses her platform to show women and girls how to hold standards without an apology and still build youthful, full lives. She holds a BA, a MA, and a JD with academic work focused on rape culture, consent, and power dynamics. And she speaks to broader issues for viral moment that surface, including fat phobia, colorism, and the double standards Black women face in the modern dating world. Ashley appears on panels and in media to discuss self-worth, healthy boundaries, and equity in contemporary relationships. Ashley, is there anything that you wanted to add to my introduction?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. Thank you for that.
You're so welcome. I'm going to go right into the questions. When you made the choice to decline the coffee date, what was the core value or principle during that decision?
For me, one, I don't drink coffee. Um, and two, he already knew that I didn't drink coffee. And so instead of going back and forth with somebody that I felt like was playing in my face, I'm gonna just say no and keep it pushing. Because there's no need to, I'm not gonna argue with somebody about the level about them disrespecting me, especially when neither one of us have a stake in that relationship. You want to be funny, I'm gonna be hilarious. I'm gonna tell you no, and I'm gonna go continue the rest of my day because I enjoy me and I enjoy my time, and I'm not gonna force myself to do something that I don't want to do with somebody that I feel like is playing with my face, playing in my face.
I agree with that. I also feel like if a man takes a woman on a coffee date, it should be at her request. So for instance, if he asks me out and we're talking and he says, "So what do you like to do? Or what would you want to do?" And I say, "Hey, let's go by Starbucks, grab some coffee and then go to Barnes and Nobles." That is something I am letting him know in that moment that I actually like to do. So for future dates, if he chooses to do something like that, he at least knows that much about me. So if a woman is suggesting a coffee date, to me, it's a little bit different
Hmm.
than when a man is suggesting it because you just met me, which means you don't know a whole lot
Hmm.
about me. Would you agree with that?
I can agree with that. Through this discourse, I've learned that the men are doing coffee dates because they consider them to be cost effective, low effort, low commitment, low risk. And so like for the women who also want dates to be that way, I think if those women request it, then those men should oblige. But for the women who feel like coffee dates are low effort, men can't be mad at that when y'all are on the internet agreeing that they are low effort, they are cheap, they're low risk and low commitment. And so I feel like if those men were to date the women that want the coffee date, and also like if the woman agrees or suggests a coffee date, then there's no harm, no foul. But trying to argue women down to change what it is that they want to do, this feels like, I think that's why we keep having this conversation. Like, honestly, because people keep focused on people that they would not date and trying to get them to see eye to eye.
Absolutely. It's like if introduce myself to you as a vegetarian
Hmm.
and you're not a vegetarian and you would like to take me on a date, my thought process is that you would look up options that are vegetarian or vegan friendly
Hmm.
so that when you go on the date with me, you also can enjoy something. If you know that you don't like to compromise how you eat and what you eat, and you don't want to have to necessarily do all of that, why would you even ask someone out who said that they were a vegetarian or a vegan? So I absolutely understand that. I don't think people look at it like if this is not within your budget,
Hmm.
then you're shopping
Hmm.
in this store. I kind of look at it
Hmm.
in that aspect. Did you expect the reaction that you received, especially from other women, or did it surprise you?
Um, I didn't expect it, but I'm not surprised. So like I've been accused of doing this like for clout and to gain following. I already had 13,000 followers on TikTok before all of this happened. So I was already in the creator fund. I was already doing the things. The thing is, I'm not really consistent. I do TikTok for fun. I'm not trying to be like an influencer or a full-time content creator, right? And TikTok had only been showing my video to like the same 270 followers. So I thought it would be the same 270 people that would see that video. And I posted it on a Friday night. I went to bed, woke up, and I think it had about 30,000 views then. I was like, okay, this will be where it ends. That is not where it ended. And so when the comments started coming in, like I have said before that black men have always been my biggest bullies. So I'm not surprised by they have been saying stuff like this to me my whole life. Like I'm low key kind of like, y'all need to come up with better insults at this point because these are old and outdated. And the women, even when this conversation has come up before, there are always women trying to get other women to see things the way that they see them or conduct themselves in the way that they would conduct themselves. Um, but the women being angry was something that confused me because like, why are you mad? If I turn down coffee dates, that's more for you. Like I didn't understand the anger and the level of violence that I felt like was coming from both the men and the women. That part was confusing, but them being negative and mean and talking about my looks, that wasn't surprising. Mm-mm.
It's very surprising to me when I am sitting in the throws or panels in the comments or whatever, because I was actually in the comment section of a live that you went into like a week or so ago,
Mhm.
controversial Shannon. And I like how when you went up on the panel, you said some of the things that you said that had to do with integrity and where you are in your standards. And I'm sure we'll get to that
Mhm.
later on in the line of questioning. But I find it funny that women will say decenter men. And then in this conversation, everything that they stated about you was self image in the centering of how a man sees you.
Mhm.
How does that register, in your opinion, to a young woman's psychology? Because we are talking about how these conversations affect women and
Mhm.
girls, because young women that are on this app that have seen the video. I actually had a conversation with my daughter about it once I knew I was going to be interviewing you. We had
Mhm.
a conversation about it. And she said the same thing. I feel like she stood 10 toes down. I feel like she let them know you can accept whatever you want to accept. And I feel the same way.
Mhm.
You can't push what you would accept on someone else. My standards
Mhm.
may not be yours. How do you feel that affects a woman's psychology when the women who look like you don't stand with you or by you in your decisions as it pertains to self standards and self autonomy?
I have received DMs from girls that are like in their 20s that are affected by the comments and are affected by the reaction because they just don't understand it. And I think me being in my 30s now, something about life has just clicked. Something about life just makes sense. I can't explain it, but it happened around the age of 33, where, like, to me, there are always going to be like male centered women who think the pinnacle of success is a romantic relationship. And if you don't have that, don't achieve that, or whatever, they look at you less than, or if it's something that they can't do, they feel bad about themselves. And I've been thinking a lot about this decenter men conversation. And I feel like as women, the ones who give birth, I think it's going to be very hard for us to actually decenter men. But what does it look like when if you take away the decentering and learning how to exist in community with men? And I think those two concepts are different from me because I strive to exist in community with men, right? I date men. I want to be with a man. I have men in my life, both friendships and family. And I've learned how to exist in community with them in the same way that I have learned to exist in community with other women, right? And I think it's hard to decenter men when A, women give birth to them, B, you're still trying to date them, and C, we live in a patriarchal society. I think all of those things are very hard to reconcile with. And I think once you get to a point where like you surround yourself with the people that love you, that care about you, that affirm you, it's much easier to drown out the noise from the internet and like other people. But I think a part of that starts with like you have to reckon with the idea that like not everybody's gonna like you, not everybody's gonna find you attractive. And there are people who just genuinely want to be mean and want to humble you. And that has nothing to do with you. Like everybody that saying everybody's feelings are valid. Everybody's feelings are valid, but you are not entitled to care. Do with that what you will. And so, like, people are going to say what they want to say. But when I get off this phone and I close my laptop, I'm going to a group of people that love me, that care about me, that affirm me, and that stand 10 toes down with me. And I think if I didn't have that community, if I never was in therapy, if my friend group and my family we didn't have these hard conversations already, I don't know if I would have been able to withstand the criticism and the scrutiny that I got. But when I tell you that it like rolled off the shoulder and I don't have a care in the world about anything anybody was saying, but had it been in my 20s or even my early 30s, I think my reaction to it would have been completely different. But because I spent so much time doing the work of building a solid community around me, it's almost like even though they weren't in a video, they created like a barrier or a shield for me where it just like bounced off and didn't bother me.
I think that, as I stated to you before, the confidence and the integrity is what stood out to me the most as you were explaining over what you were eating for less than 25,
Mhm.
no, 9, at that table. And I thought to myself, you said in integrity, but I want to know, what does integrity really look like to you in real life? And I understand that that was real life. You
Mhm.
encountered a person in real life, but in everyday real life, outside of what TikTok, society, or anybody else thinks about you, what does integrity for you as a woman look like in real life?
So I have always believed that no is a full sentence. And I don't always believe that the no needs to be justified. Like if someone is asking you to borrow your car and you say no, if they ask you why, do you feel like that response is necessary? If someone is asking you to borrow money and you say no and they ask why, are you going to give them a why? Or are you going to be like, because I said so? What is my money? And I think I've gotten to a point where I enjoy my company. I enjoy my time. I and when I was in grad school the first time, I made the conscious decision that I was not going to prioritize romantic relationships above other types of relationships. And I was going to put the same amount of work in my friendships as I did my romantic relationships, my family as I did my romantic relationships, my business relationships as I did with romantic relationships. And I think that has helped me establish a baseline of integrity of how I treat all people and how I expect all people to treat me because I value all of those people equally. Because sometimes I feel like in romantic relationships, especially as women, we compromise our integrity, we compromise our values, we compromise our morals because we want this relationship to work so badly in ways we wouldn't do for other types of relationships. But if you start to value those relationships the same, the things that you're willing to do, the things that you're willing to accept, the things in which you're willing to compromise look different now because you feel whole in those other relationships and you're not looking to your romantic relationship to fill a void that is there because perhaps the other relationships are lacking. And I think had I not made that decision to prioritize all of those relationships equally, I think integrity would look very, very different for me right now because I think I would be a lot more willing to compromise on things that I wouldn't normally be willing um to compromise, if that makes sense.
It does. I was going to ask you, how did you build the self confidence? But you kind of explained it in everything that you just said right there.
Hmm.
Do you think that when we have young girls who have to grow up to be older women, as myself and you, and I'm much older than you, um, do you think that right now with the red pill environment, and we're seeing it even in the young age kids, do you think that the journey to self confidence for them going through puberty, going through, it's my first year in high school, going through, it's my first year in middle school. I don't have any friends, moving to new states. Do you think the environment that we're in with the red pill is going to have an effect on them being able to build self-confidence effectively?
So one of the reasons why I have the confidence that I do is because I was allowed to say no in my home. I was allowed to practice no with my parents. I was allowed to practice no at school without the repercussions from my parents. Now, I had to do it respectfully. I had to know my limits and all of that, but my parents never made me feel like I could not say no. My parents never made me feel like my no was a problem. And I don't think my parents are in that red pill pipeline. And I bring that up because the people who are in the red pill pipeline are raising children. And because they are raising children, that is part of the environment that they're existing in. And I do think the self-esteem and the confidence and all that starts at home and how children are being raised. And and I think about this like if you're not taught you can say no at home, when you go out to school and somebody is trying to pressure you to like skip class, how do you say no? If someone is trying to pressure you to like sneak out at night or go to a party and do things that your parents wouldn't allow you to do, how do you say no when you've never actually practiced that? And I think right now with this red pill content, these people have children and they are influencing the young men at a rate that I haven't really seen before. And I think the way that young girls are having to navigate this is different than like how I had to navigate it because we didn't have access to information as readily as we do now. And I think if parents are not actively involved in understanding the information and stuff that their children have access to, it may be a little bit more difficult. And I think it's very, very important for older women like you and myself to make sure we're clued in to what the kids have access to and have these types of conversations with them so that somebody in their life can be a safe place to land so that they can be like, so I've been talking to this person and they said this to me and I think it's kind of weird and I don't really know what to do. Like there needs to be an adult in their life that's a safe place to land to be able to have those safe conversations, those hard hitting conversations, and to just ask all the questions that they may think is wild and maybe not the smartest question and know that the answer is going to come from a place of love and not a place of judgment. And I think that it's important for younger girls to identify the older women in their life who they can do that with. It may be someone in church, it may be your cheer coach, it may be somebody that's on the basketball team, it may be your best friend's older sister, mom, auntie, but just try and find somebody that you feel like you can trust that you can have these conversations with because in order to be someone to provide guidance, you have to give them the opportunity to guide you.
I agree with that. Growing up, I grew up in a religious and abusive household. And I didn't grow up in a household where our parents necessarily inserted gender roles or anything like that, but they were very abusive, very strict, very neglectful. And they never talked to us about some of the issues that we are facing, like right now in today's world. So the issues of, that's a secret spot or that's a private spot, no one should be touching you. We never even had talks about when we got ready to come on our cycle. None of those conversations happened with my mother. As I got older, I started getting sent to my great grandmother's house, which was in the country in Georgia, and she was teaching me everything, how to cook, how to sew. She was sewing my clothes. I was outside running behind pigs.
Mhm.
Like I did everything that to me would be the ideal life. And I said all of that to say that you're absolutely correct when you say when you don't know something. And I asked a question about the red pill environment. If I was living in the red pill environment back then, and I was just not to the degree that it is now, because it's always been around. This is not new. It's not new thinking. It's just new announcing. This has been going on. I would have been so messed up as a young girl growing up in a religious household, being taught that this is how you should be for a man. This is what you should do for a man. And my parents didn't even teach that, but we were in school. When I was in school, the Bible was in school. Spanking, paddling was in school. When I was in third grade, they had wooden paddles that if you got out of line, they would have actually whoop you. Those are the days that I feel like they're trying to get us back to, where everybody is kicking and screaming because we're not going. You're absolutely correct that those supports need to be in place, because if you had somebody that didn't have access to those things like me growing up in those times, and those times were reversed, a lot of our young women would become more prey to predators than they are right now. And a lot of that does come from self-confidence building. How do you stay centered when society often tells women to lower their standards to be accepted?
My first thought was I don't care, but that's not really beneficial to the conversation. I mean, I don't think being single is the worst thing in the world. Like, I have a full life, whether or not a man is in it. Um, and so, like, if I want something and somebody won't get it for me, I will go get it myself. O- I'm a firm believer in, like, when you make a decision, you're the only one that's gonna reap the benefits, and you're the only one that's gonna suffer the consequences. So do what's best
Absolutely.
for you. And if lowering your standards is not something you want to do, don't do it. If you are okay with the outcome of what that could potentially mean, then don't do it. If you're not okay with that outcome, then perhaps do something different. But also, I firmly believe that whatever opportunities are for me are going to find me when I'm ready to receive them. Whatever person is for me is going to find me when I'm ready to receive them. I there's always going to be someone who's going to match you. There's always going to be somebody that's going to be willing to find you, meet you where you're at. And if you're okay with here, that will be okay with you here, or going to elevate with you. And I firmly believe that. So while everybody is arguing about whether or not I should take a coffee date, no matter what they say, I'm still not going to take a coffee date. And I think I also have people in my life that just affirm who I am and affirm my decisions, because I've been very intentional about building my community. And there's been some trial and errors along the way. Like, it hasn't always been perfect, but like, the community that I have, they stand 10 toes down with me. And what? Like, I don't know a good answer for that, other than I don't care what society is telling women. Society is also telling women that they should be barefoot and pregnant. But women ain't doing that. Like, society says a lot of things. Take the parts that make sense to you and leave the parts that don't.
I wanted to talk about community and cultural reactions based on something that you just said. And some of the women, they supported your decision, while some of the other women criticized it. And why do you think sometimes we judge each other's choices as harshly as we do as women?
Oh, I've been thinking about that, especially after Kelly Price came out and said what she said. And I think that, like, as women, as Black women, sometimes we are our own worst critics. I also think it comes from a place of, like, well, if I'm willing to accept a coffee date and I look better than you, who are you to think you're too good for a coffee date? Because I know you don't look better than me, type deal, right? And it has nothing to do with looks. It has nothing to do with, like, any of that. I'm just not going on a coffee date. And I think, whether we like it or not, being online, once you find a lane, it's very lucrative to stay in that lane, whether you mean it or not. And so some of the people that were making videos, the men and the women, like, some of the women who were making videos disparaging me liked the original video. And so I just look at it like they're grifting. They're just making videos for the sake of making a coin. And because this is the way that they've built their audience, and this is who their audience is, they know the talking points that they have to do. Um, and so that's what I chunked it up as. I also, the way that I looked at it, like, yeah, there were women making disparaging videos and whatnot, but the way that Black women showed up and showed out and supported me, I would be foolish to focus on the ones that were saying negative things, when time and time again Black women showed up in those comments. They made the videos, they were on the lives defending me. They were on threads, and I don't even have threads. They were on threads fighting for their life in my honor. And I'm never going to focus on the few Black women who were disparaging me when there were so many showing me love and support.
Do you think that we have normalized allowing the standards of men to be applicable to how we view ourselves? Like in this particular situation, when they were saying, you're not even as cute as me, it doesn't matter. Beauty has nothing to do with integrity, standards, value. It has nothing to do with any of that, because one of the first things that's going to fade is your
Mm-hmm.
beauty. How you look is going to fade. What do you have on the inside? So, do you think that we have just, as women, not even just as society, because this is a woman thing,
Mm-hmm.
because these were women, do you think we have made that applicable to how we see ourselves in society and through the eyes of men?
I do. And I think we've applied it to ourselves because so long the messaging to women is you need to get a man, you need to find a husband, you need to do these things. And in order to do these things, you have to do it in a way that would attract men. And so we've all been indoctrinated in the socialization of appealing to the male gaze, so to speak. And some women have done the work to decenter the male gaze, and some people are still heavily in it. And I think, you need to find what works like for you. But I think the black beauty standard in terms of women is heavily dependent on the male gaze. That's why there's the BBLs and all the other types of plastic surgery. And I'm not necessarily saying that there's anything wrong with like plastic surgery, but like the typical black beauty standard is very much male centered.
Do you believe that when women lower their standards for acceptance, it can impact their self esteem long term?
I think it does. I think it impacts their self esteem because you're compromising like a value is something to me, it's the kind of like the core of who you are, the core of what you believe in, and that is in line with your integrity and everything else. And when you compromise something like that, you're always going to be questioning it. You're always going to be wondering if you made the right decision. You're always going to be wondering if it's worth it. And if other people around you know you've made that decision, you're not going to want to look like you made a bad decision. You're going to want to save face. And I think over time, if that relationship or that thing doesn't work out, it'll turn into like, I did this, I did that, I compromised this, I compromised that, and then this still didn't like work out. And that's how, perhaps we end up getting the angry black woman.
So let me just ask the overshadowing question that everybody probably wanted to ask. Is this really about coffee?
I don't think it is. And I think that's why I think it went viral, or we're still talking about it for two things. It wasn't about coffee. I think it was because I had the audacity to say no and then still go out and look like I was having a good time, coupled with the way that I looked. If people would have just let the conversation be, I don't think there's anything wrong with coffee dates. And I'm not going to be wasting my money on women that I don't think is worth coffee dates, or I don't think there's anything wrong with coffee dates. And I don't want to waste my time with a man if I don't know if I like them. But because people made it about my looks, they made it bigger than me. They made it about, and not only did they make it about my looks, what they were really saying was because I wasn't attractive, I wasn't allowed to consent was waiverable for them based off of how attractive I was. And so it became this conversation around women are allowed to say no. Women are allowed to not go on coffee dates. Women are allowed to have standards regardless to whether you find them attractive or not, right? And that's a conversation that is about all women, not just this particular woman. And then I think one of the ways that it kept going viral and the conversation kept coming up was because I stood 10 toes down on what I said with the response videos. I didn't waver because usually when something on this app happens, people are like, I'm going to take a break from my mental health. And so they get off the app, they make an apology video, or they get on the app, they get on TikTok crying about it. I ain't do none of that because I'm not sorry about what I said. I meant what I said the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, and I will mean it all the way to my grave. Okay. And I think the way that I stood 10 toes down on it did something to both the men and the women. It made the men upset at the fact that they were trying to humble me and
Mhm.
it didn't work because how dare you be fat and ugly and still have the nerve to have self esteem? How dare you be fat and ugly and have the nerve to feel like you can turn down any request from a man? Because how dare you think that you are going to have other options because you are fat and ugly? That's what it did for the men. For the women, I feel like for the ones who like were showing support, it was wow. Even in the face of all this adversity and all this scrutiny, she is still standing 10 toes down on what she said. Because usually women would cower. Women would be like, well, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I need to apologize. And I wasn't going for any of that. And I think the way that I was able to still be on the app and be confident in what I said and who I am, I think it turned into like, I'm very encouraged by this. And this is about this for you is about coffee date, but this could be for me about anything in any aspect of my life where somebody is asking me to compromise on something that I don't want to compromise on. And not only will I say no, but I have the confidence to maintain that no. And I think that that is what the conversation is starting to morph into now with the whole coffee date thing. Like, I don't have to justify my standards to you. Either you're going to meet them or you're not. And if you're not, you are free to go find somebody whose standards you can meet. And I am free to go find somebody who will meet my standards. And I think that's kind of like where we are in the landscape of the conversation. And people are genuinely now just confused. Why are people mad at this? Because it's not about the coffee. That's
It's
why
not
people
about
are
the
mad.
coffee. It's not about the coffee. I took two things from I took the same thing from both sides of what I was hearing. And then I'll bring it back to a question I was about to ask about backlash and younger kids. And these are the two things that I took. When I read the men's point of view, a lot of them were just upset that they, one, can't even get a date. And how they see you is what they were basing their opinions off of. Here, I can't even get a date. And here she is, she's getting a date and having the audacity to turn it down because he offered coffee. What if that's all he can afford? Then he shouldn't be asking anyone on the date. If all he can afford is coffee, he should not be asking anyone on a date, or he should date within his budget. The women's side, same thing, same thing. Sitting here I am sitting there paying thousands of dollars for BBLs, thousands of dollars for makeup, $700 wigs, eyelash down. I'm going to the club every single weekend, and I'm running into the same dude. Dude's not even calling me back. And here she is with an entire coffee date. And she had the audacity to get on camera and turn it down. All I saw was a lot of projection. I can't
Hmm.
tell you what to accept, and you can't tell me what to accept. I can't tell you what's best for you, and you can't tell me what's best for me. And when
Hmm.
you have young women that are looking at this and they're hearing what you said, oh, so bold and confident, and then you having people who look like us.
Hmm.
I don't really talk about the other communities because they're not a part of who I aim to reach. I talk about my community because that's who I'm a part of. And you see those people who look like us, grown adults, men and women, saying the things that they're saying because of your decision. What would you say to a young woman watching about the backlash and second guessing their own standards from something like this?
Mm, that's a good question. What I would say to the young women watching and second guessing their standards is offer yourself the same grace and understanding you will offer to your homegirl, that you will offer to your sister, that you will offer to your best friend, that you offer to anybody else. Because maintaining your standards and maintaining your boundaries, it doesn't come without practice. And anytime you practice, you're not going to get everything right the first time, the second time, hell, maybe not even the third time. But as long as you keep at it and you keep practicing, you're going to improve, right? You're going to get better and you're going to be able to remain firm in those boundaries, in those standards, in those expectations. And in the moment where you may not feel like you do that, remember to offer yourself grace and understanding and the love that you give everybody else because you are just deserving of that same grace, that same love, and that same understanding. And I'm a child of Beyonce, and she has haters. Okay. So if Beyonce has haters, if Rihanna has haters, if these people that are like the pinnacle of beauty and success and all of that have haters and have people that don't like them and talk negatively about them, we're also going to have the same. And instead of focusing on the people that don't like you, lean into the people that love you, that support you, that care about you, because somebody is always going to have something to say, whether it be positive or negative. And sometimes it may hurt your feelings. That's okay. Sometimes it may have you down. That's okay. It's okay to feel those things and to be there, but don't stay there. At a certain point, you have to get up and keep going because you only get one life to live. And personally, I don't think you should want to live it depressed and sad and always be consumed with the things that other people think of you that are negative, because that'll be a very long and hard life to live. And so I think as long as you are mindful that you're not going to get everything right the first time, but you're going to keep at it and keep trying and keep practicing until you do have the confidence to stand firm, I think you'll be okay. And if not, call me. I'll get them together.
This is another situation also kind of focused and kind of highlighted how society ties women's confidence to financial or social security. What
Mm.
does real security look like to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I actually care about finances a lot. And um, I think that is a hard question for me because I care about finances a lot. And my mother cares about finances. And so I feel like my grandmother, I grew up with a bunch of women who, if you don't do it, I can do it. It's very much like, and it doesn't matter who. It could have been another man. It could have been my mom asking my grandma for something. Because my grandma didn't want to do it. Fine, I'll do it. My granny was the same way, and I think my family raised all of us to be like, yeah, always ask for what you want. Always ask. But just know that they can always say no and then go do it. And so I think that that is something that I have taken with me into my adulthood, and the fact that you can always ask. The worst they can do is say no. But if you still want it, like, go get it. And that could be about finances, that could be about anything. And the way we were raised is you can do what you want, but finances make things a lot easier. And put yourself in a position to be able to not have to rely, if that makes sense. So you could be making like six figures, but if you end up dating someone, let's just say they're a millionaire or something, that lifestyle you get is not something that you can provide for yourself because you don't have those type of finances. So even though you're making good money, you may be in a position where you have to compromise on a few things because that millionaire lifestyle is different than a six figure lifestyle, right? Or even like, let's just say you're in school and you're not working and you're with somebody who is working and they're making like 70,000. That lifestyle is still a little bit different. If you have the confidence that even if this relationship or this thing doesn't work, you're going to be okay, I think that changes the way that you move in romantic relationships. Because yes, I want you here. I don't need you here. I like you here. I don't tolerate you here. And I think once you view relationships that way, I think you can operate within them and with the people that you choose to date differently. Because I'm always of the belief that I want to like my person and I want my person. The moment that I need them or the moment that I am tolerating them, it's time for me to exit stage left.
It's very true of a lot of men lately. Um, I said a lot, guys. I didn't say all. Um, this is the thing. How can I separate what you show me from what I would like to see from you?
Mm,
So, if you would like me to see a good man, how would you like me to compartmentalize what my eyes are showing me versus what you're actually doing? I'm going to give an example because I think it's one that a lot of men, because that's what I'm talking about right now, don't really take into consideration.
mm-hmm,
If you're on a panel and you're a good guy,
mm-hmm,
and you're on a panel, a guy comes up and he's being a jerk. If you don't open up your mouth and check, because that's what it is, his behavior, not his manhood. Because I hear a lot of them say, well, we don't do that in the open. Like, we do that behind closed doors. Then you're not a real friend because you are allowing your friend to make a fool of themselves
mm-hmm,
in public so that you can address it in private later. They're going to forget
mm-hmm,
because it's not going to be as serious as it would be if you were said in person.
mm-hmm.
And then they're going to do it again. So if you're on a panel and you see a man and you don't check his behavior, can you really say that you're a good man? Good is performative to me. for the benefit of something. I prefer you just be a decent human. If nothing that you did was came off the mic and said, listen, you don't have to talk to the women like that. They're not talking to you like that. Don't do that. Let's have a conducive conversation. It's very disruptive to be in a live where you're actually trying to learn and men are coming up on the panel, women too, because it's not just men, but it's mostly men that crash out. The ones who handle emotions better because they're logical, it's usually them that crash out. It's not usually the women. I'm kind of thinking about that emotional thing. I don't think that's true. But how do you compartmentalize what you see versus what you want me to see? And I say that because I think a lot of men are chasing what they would like the image of a man to look like versus what the image of that man is.
Okay.
And when you can't do that, then you cannot separate your worth from how others perceive you. You can't. How do you separate your worth from how others perceive you? Doing your choosing of your choices, how you date, and then your lifestyle, how you live your life.
Like I was talking about this earlier on my live today about how I'm aware that I'm conventionally unattractive, but that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have self-esteem, right? I am aware of like the realities in which I exist in. Sometimes I could be a little delulu, but for the most part, I am aware of the realities in which I live in. And even with that reality, I still choose to have self esteem. Still choose to have self worth, and I still choose to move the ways in which I move, right? And I think understanding the reality in which we exist in is one thing, but allowing that to influence how you feel about yourself is something different. And I hate to keep bringing this up, but again, going back to my community that I've built and how I fostered different relationships in my life, um, they don't allow me to like sit in a funk. They don't allow me to ingest all of these things that people are saying about me and to me. And I'm gonna just keep it a buck. Like there's certain aspects of my life where I know I am that girl. And you are not going to be able to tell me differently. I don't care what you say. Like sometimes, like if I can recognize the fact that and that's the thing, I think I'm conventionally unattractive. I'm not ugly, and nobody's ever going to convince me that I am ugly, right? But there are also other aspects of my life where a lot of people do not hold the candle to me, and that's just what it is. And again, something about life clicked in my 30s where I am now in this space. I was not always here. I always had people in my life trying to affirm me and like, build me up and all that kind of stuff. And there would be times where I'm like, I don't know, I would question it and whatnot. But now that I'm in my 30s, I fully receive it. I stand on it, and it like is what it is. And also, like, a lot of the people that may talk about you, you may not have a favorable opinion of them either. So, like, if these people do not live the way you want to live, they don't conduct themselves the way you think people should conduct themselves, if they don't have good character, if you also do not value them, then you should place no value on what they think of you, because y'all could go back and forth about how the other person ain't shit, or you don't like each other, or you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the people that talk wouldn't even have the privilege to know my name in real life if I'm keeping it a buck. Um, so I don't know if that was a good answer for that, but
It was your answer, and I appreciate it. I would like to add to what you said about, how we view ourselves in perception. So about 20 some years ago, oddly enough, I think it was 2002, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was 28 years old. And so I went into surgery on my sister's birthday. It was just a weird situation. It was on her birthday. She was stationed in Iraq at the time. I'm worried about, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was crazy because this is my first time being diagnosed with anything. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? So anyway, I went into the hospital room. I had my surgery for breast cancer. And then after my surgery, people were coming to visit me and they were just, oh, let me see. And I was just like, take a look. And I'm just showing it to him, right? I never look, and I noticed one day I never looked, like months later, I had never looked at the breast.
Mm,
I didn't look at it like when I got out of the surgery, and I didn't look at it when I was letting, the other people see it. And before I knew it, it had been a whole year that I had gone through breast cancer surgery and that I hadn't even looked at what the breast even looked like because it was in my right breast and I was going for reconstruction. And I was 28 at the time. So body image was very big for us at that age. So one day I took a bath and I got out of the tub and some just told me to stand in front of the mirror and just look. Just look. You have to accept this about yourself. Because if you cannot right now accept this about yourself, how are you going to expect anybody else to accept it? You have to be comfortable with the scars. And so I looked at it and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I don't know what I imagined. I thought it was just going to be, I don't know what I thought, because I was 28. It was my first time going through anything serious. And so that is the pivotal moment in my life at 28 where I stopped caring about what anybody thought about me. I stopped caring about your perception. Your perception may be your reality, but it's not reality. And
mm-hmm.
so I stopped worrying at that time. And I think it may have been way before that. But when it came to self-esteem and image, I stopped worrying about what people thought about me at that point. Because if I stayed stuck there, I would stay in survival mode, surviving the fittest every day, trying to get through. Oh my God, I have a scar. Oh my God, every day. And so I said all that to say that we do need to learn how to honor our standards. And that's honor them without a fear of being misunderstood or a fear of being labeled. What do you feel is a way, should I say, that some women can begin to honor their standards without fear of people misunderstanding them or them being mislabeled as bougie or you're too good? Like, how can you just be yourself and people just accept that that's who you are?
For me, a part of that has come with the fact that you are going to be misunderstood. You are going to be mislabeled. And once you understand that there will also be people who will understand you and will be able to meet you where you're at. But I think a part of having standard, as part of just living life, is not everybody is going to understand why you move the way that you move, why you talk the way that you talk, why you dress the way that you dress, why you do any of the things that you do. They're going to misunderstand, they're going to mislabel, some of them are not going to like it. And that's just part of it. Like, you're not going to be able to please everybody. And the goal should not be to please everybody. The goal should be able to please you. So when you have a standard, does that standard make you happy? Does that standard make you feel good? Does that standard make you feel like regardless of what happens, you're going to be able to stand on this? Then stand on it. Take the coffee date, for example, right? I said no to coffee dates and everybody's upset. Had I said yes to the coffee date, a bunch of people would have still been upset. And I would have been more upset had I said yes, knowing that I don't drink coffee and I don't like coffee dates, and then people still be mad at me, versus saying no to the coffee date and having people be upset because I did what made me happy. I did what spoke to my spirit and my soul. And I have no regrets because I did something that was for me, about me, that centered me and what I wanted. And I have no regrets about any of this. And I probably would have regretted had I said yes to that coffee date out of fear that, like, who do I think I am turning down coffee dates? Or, you know, I don't have a lot of matches on Hinge right now and I don't know when somebody else is going to ask me, so let me just say yes to this to see where it goes. Because already you asking me on a coffee date, independent of the cheapness, I don't like coffee, which means you're not listening to me. So the very foundation of us trying to move forward with this, you're already showing me that you either don't listen or you don't care. And those are two things that I do not want to move forward with somebody, because it's very important for me for a man to handle me with care. And if you can't even remember something as basic as a coffee date, at the very foundation of this, then there's no need to, like, move forward. And I say all that to say your standard should be something for you that makes you happy. So when you get the backlash and you get the scrutiny, you don't feel bad about it because you say what you said.
Standards are a form of boundaries. It's the same thing. So this is what I'm setting for myself, and I'm not willing to cross this. This is non-negotiable. All standards are are there, and everybody should have them. So whenever you have somebody coming into a situation questioning your standards, that's a red flag. That's number one. Because how dare you have standards? What are you saying? We should all have standards. What are you talking about? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Another thing that I was going to say is when this situation with the backlash came up with the coffee, which I didn't want to highlight too much of the coffee, it really just kind of said to me how men were viewing women. And I'll give you an example. I heard someone say in one of these videos that I watched, because it was a bunch of them, that, she should have just said okay to the car. So I should just agree to something that I'm not interested in. So let's go ahead and set the tone
Mm-hmm.
for how he's going to treat me later, because if I accept this right now, I'll be accepting things like that later. So it's really not about the coffee. And then I heard another one say, well, we're just going on a coffee date so I can get to know her. I would assume that you have been talking to this person over the phone. I'm a months kind of girl. I don't know where you are, but I'm a months kind of girl. And I'm building the foundation, because if I can't get past talking to you on the phone, we haven't even made it to a date. So the fact that you're on a coffee date, that tells me that this is something that you just abruptly thought to do.
Mm-hmm.
You put no thought into it. You put no care into it. Nothing that I've said to you transpired into coffee. That
Mm-hmm.
tells me we just met each other. Because
Mm-hmm.
who is going on a coffee date and I've been talking to you on the phone for 3 months?
Right.
If I've already laid that foundation, this should at least be dinner at a nice restaurant. You can pick the restaurant, but a coffee date after talking on the phone to you for 3 months, and now I'm excited because I finally get to meet you in person, and I go get my hair coiled,
Mm-hmm.
I get a facial, I get my nails done, I'm hopping around with a broke finger, but I'm making it happen, and you only want to go get coffee?
Mm-hmm.
I spent almost $300 just doing the things that I named for
Listen,
coffee. After
here.
spending 3 months on the phone getting to know you, all you got is coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows me that you're not a person that plans.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a person that listens actively. Because
Mm-hmm.
we've said some things in 3 months that you should have been documenting. Hey, oh, she likes movies. Oh, she likes plays. Oh, because that's what I would have been doing if the date to plan would have been on me. So I just think it is low effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend you for standing 10 toes down like you stood. I love integrity. I'm a big person of integrity and character, and you being autonomous over who you want to be, not who society says you need to be. I've been this way since I was a little girl, and I don't think that that's going to change because I'm 51 now. I think that I'm going to continue to be this type of person. Do you have any closing remarks for our ladies out here?
Um, the only thing that I will say is the bare minimum also includes what you can give yourself. So if what you can give yourself is here and somebody is coming along and it's here, don't do this. Do this. Like just leave. And I think that it's really important to keep in mind that we have these conversations about bare minimum and all that. And I think it's really important for young girls to know the bare minimum also includes what you can give yourself. And somebody should be meeting that or exceeding it. But by no means should you come down here with them. And that's pretty much all I'd like to say.
I agree with you. I do have an affirmation. My standards are not negotiable. They are sacred. I honor my word. I protect my peace, and I move with confidence knowing that who I am is enough. I do have closing remarks, and they are as such. Ladies, as we close today's conversation, I want you to remember your standards are not a burden, they are a blessing. Integrity is not about impressing others, it's about being aligned with yourself. When you stand in your truth, you permit other women and young girls to do the same. Don't shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Continue to stand tall, live boldly, and trust the right people will rise to meet your standards. Until next time, stay brave, stay confident, and always stay true to yourself. Here is a list of books that you guys can read that are going to be in conjunction with the show today. Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nadra Glover Twain. The Confidence Code, The Science and Art of Self-Assurance, What Women Should Know by Katie Kay and Claire Shipman. And I Am Enough by Grace Byers. Thank you again, Ashley, for joining me today. Also
Thank you
known
for having me.
as later. This was a great conversation. I loved having you on, and maybe I'll invite you back before we have another conversation again.
Thank you.
Again, I am the Redhead Gemini, signing off.